Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Mo Mondays. In this week's episode, we are going to be talking about configuration profiles. What is a configuration profile? Now, let's imagine you're deploying a whole number of different rooms. Let's imagine you're deploying 10 different rooms, and you've got Microsoft Teams Rooms devices in there, you've got Teams panels on the outside. How do you then go up and set up all the settings? In the olden days, it would be an individual thing, right? You'd have to go there within each room and then actually go ahead and set all the settings. As time went on, you were able to kind of set settings within Teams Admin Center. And now we have what we call configuration profiles, where you can actually create a configuration profile which predetermines what the settings are going to be for that particular profile. So, for example, you have the ability to go ahead and change things like wallpapers, to change things like the office hours, to change localities, and those sort of things. Configuration profiles will differ depending on the devices you're assigning them to. For this episode, I'm going to make it nice and short, nice and easy. So I'm going to concentrate on Teams panels. Those are the devices that sit on the outside of the room, the one that tells you whether the room is busy or if it's booked or where you can check in and check out. The Teams panels, which typically run on Android, they sit on the outside of the room. And yes, you can connect or configure configuration files for them. Now, you do have the ability to create configuration files for Microsoft Teams Rooms on Android devices as well. There's a lot more settings in there. But for this week, as I mentioned earlier on, we'll do Teams panel. So without further ado, we need to jump into Teams Admin Center. That's where the configuration profiles live. That's where we need to set up. So let's head over there now, and I'll show you exactly how that's done. Okay, we are now in the Teams Admin Center. Remember, in order for you to get through to the Teams Admin Center, it's literally admin.teams.microsoft.com. You log in with your administrator credentials, and then you'll have access to the homepage, to this site. So this is the dashboard, as you know, for the Teams Admin Center. And what we want to do is we want to head over to the left-hand side, and you'll notice we have Teams devices. Now, usually if it's the first time you've been on the page, Teams devices will be kind of not expanded. So you go ahead, you expand it, and you'll see things like all your Teams rooms on Windows, all your Teams rooms on Androids, Surface Hubs if you have any, panels, phones, displays, etc. For the purpose of this episode, we are going to head straight over to panels. So I'm going to go ahead, hit panels there. Let that load up. Now, what you'll notice across here is it obviously shows me all the panels that I currently have within my tenant, what's connected, what's not, what's healthy, what's offline, etc., etc. And the one we're going to go to is my home office. So this particular one here is my device. So let's go ahead, click that one, and it will give you all the standard information you would expect to see. So for example, it tells me, all the latest software that's available, etc. I have the ability to update the software directly from here. I can restart and refresh the devices and whatnot. However, in order for us to set up a configuration file, we're just going to go back to the main screen of the panel's main screen. And just across the top here, you'll notice we have what we call configuration profiles. Now, you do need to set up the configuration profiles first. So let's go ahead, hit configuration profiles there. If you have any existing ones, I have an existing one there, which is why it's populated here. You'll find them all in here, but let's go ahead, create a brand new one, and I'll show you how it works. So you simply just go ahead, hit the add button. It's as simple as that. You name what your configuration profile is going to be. So I'm just going to put test config across there, and then you can put a description down as well. So I'm going to put building 101. So all the devices that we're installing in building 101 will have this particular config across there. Now, as we move through the settings, a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, pretty straightforward, but let's run through them anyway. We've got obviously set your device lock, which is generally switched on. Any device lock pins, etc. Now, again, this depends on the type of device that you're using. If you're using like a Teams panel, generally you don't really have a device lock on there. Your language, so English United States is the default one because that's how the tenant is set up. But I can go ahead and say, hey, no, I'm here in the UK, so I want to set that to the UK. What your time zone looks like, what your date format is as well. So, if you're like me, whenever I go to the States and they've got the different times, the different way of doing dates and stuff, it confuses me like crazy. So I like obviously putting date formats to the way we have them here in the UK. Of course, you got your time format there as well. But what's really good is you've also got your maintenance window. So if you haven't watched any earlier episodes of Mo Mondays, a maintenance window is the time when Microsoft will install or configure devices, any updates to devices. So generally what happens with Microsoft Teams Rooms devices is when a device is not used, it will go ahead and download all the updates in the background. During that maintenance window is when it goes ahead and applies it. It will also reboot your machines as well. That way it clears the cache and applies all your updates, etc. So again, the maintenance window here by default is set between 1 and 4. I'm fine with that. That's not our kind of working hours. We're good. And then, of course, the update frequency as well. By default, it's set to Sunday to do it once a week. That's okay if you want to live life on the edge and you want to do it every day. Absolutely, please do. But generally, you'll find once a week is more than enough. Teams Rooms devices will always check every single day anyway. And then another really good one is showroom equipment. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that one on. Now, showroom equipment will only show the room equipment if you have set it up correctly within the room resource account. So in the room resource account, I believe I've done an episode of this previously in the past. Check out the playlist. You should see it up there. You're able to, while you're creating a room resource account, to actually define and say what's inside of that room. So, for example, you can say, hey, this room has a touchscreen, it has a 12-seat suite seating area, it has a content camera, it has intelligent speaker, whatever you want to put inside of the room equipment. You put that within the room resource account. It's a really good idea and good standard to do this anyway, because a lot of times when people are looking for meeting rooms, they'll want to, especially if the meeting room is being used, they'll want to just kind of click the Teams panel, see what room equipment's in there, and be like, yep, that's the one we want to use for collaboration, as an example. Or we want video, or we want, dual screen, whatever it may be. So showroom equipment is a really good one to select there as well. Meeting settings. People can reserve rooms from a panel. So this gives you the ability to walk up to a Teams panel, and it will generally show you, and I'll see if I can put a screenshot up here. It will generally show you the calendar of when it's booked. And if there's any available spaces, you have the ability to go ahead and reserve. So you press the reserve button, and then in blocks of, I think it's 15 minutes, you're able to kind of extend and block out that room, which will then go ahead and block out the calendar for you as well. People can scan a QR code to reserve a room. Again, it's another easy way that Microsoft's implemented in recent months, where you can scan a QR barcode and then reserve it directly from your device or from your phone. So on the go, there's no need for you to then go back to your laptop and click on Outlook and click Room Finder and all of that. Just do it directly using a QR barcode. Nice and easy. Maximum room occupancy notification. Now, if you have cameras in the room that have people counting capabilities, and you've also told the room resource account what the max occupancy rate is inside of that room, what it will do is it will basically use that people counting camera. And if you've defined it a room as 4 people room, and then the fifth or sixth person walks in, it will actually flash up on the screen and it will say, hey, there's too many people in this room. So, it was really brought in during the COVID era, but it's still very, very useful for today as well. So again, maximum room occupancy notification is a good one, especially if you're using cameras out there that have people counting capabilities. But remember, it will pull that information off that room resource account. So ensure that your room resource account is set up correctly with all of that information required for this to work really, really well. Send a check-in notification. You can go ahead and kind of set that on as well. So if somebody checks in or somebody walks into a room, it will send you that check-in notification. One that's been really asked a lot is about releasing rooms if they're not being used. So if you have set in check-in as an example, so you walk into a room and you check in, if somebody has booked out a room, and it happens a lot, lots of people will book out rooms but then never turn up, you have the ability to release the room automatically. So you'll see if I go ahead and I select this toggle here, it will say, hey, do you want to release after 10 minutes, after 15 minutes, after 20 minutes, etc. 10 minutes, usually it's about right. Most people are late for about, around 5 to 8 minutes or so. If you're in a type of industry where people are constantly late, maybe you want to just increase that to like 15 minutes. So if nobody checks into that room when it's been booked already, within 15 minutes, it will automatically release the room back out into the calendar. So that's good. You've also got early checkout here as well. So you can obviously hover over it. It says here, when you turn this on, people can check out of a room early, so it's available for others to reserve. So again, a good one to set up. If I've reserved the room for a whole hour and I only use 30 minutes of it, I can then do early checkout, which then releases the room and gives availability for that next half an hour. It's a really good thing to do. And then, of course, if you want people to have the ability to extend room reservations as well, you can toggle that on or off. This is useful for those quieter rooms. For those really busy rooms out there, a lot of administrators may not want to toggle that switch because you want to try and give everyone a fair chance to use those meeting rooms. If you've ever been to like Microsoft Paddington in London, it's always busy, always booked out. In that scenario, if I was setting up a configuration profile for that site, I would probably leave that one switched off. So if you booked it for an hour, you only get an hour and away you go. But in this case, for those quieter rooms, if you booked it for 30 minutes and you need longer, you have the ability to go ahead and extend it as well, and it will then go ahead and book out it will book out the calendar for you as well. Okay, next we move into device settings. So within device settings, you have the ability to kind of set up like the LEDs. Now, by default, most Teams panels will have the Teams purple LED lights across there to show whether it's busy or whether it's available. Available is generally green. You'll find that everywhere. But you have the ability to select it whether if it's busy to be Teams purple or just a standard red. By default, red is everyone assigns red as a busy room and green as an empty room. But if you're a full-on Teams house and everyone is using Teams day in day out, maybe you want to use the Teams purple and add a bit of color to the office as well. Of course, then we next have theme across here as well. So currently, right now, these are the themes that are available. These are the wallpapers that we have available for Teams panel. It is in the roadmap items that it should be releasing in September, the ability for you to be able to upload custom wallpaper. That will be done via this page as well. So you'll have the ability to upload custom theme or custom wallpaper and then select that wallpaper as well. Again, remember, if you are deploying 10 different rooms and 10 of those rooms have the panels on the outside, you don't have to go there and configure each one. Use a configuration profile, set up the same wallpaper for all of them, and as soon as you apply it, it will then go ahead and set up. So yeah, you have the ability to set your wallpapers there. Screensavers, if you want them, backlight brightness, if you want them as well. So I'm going to put mine a little lower. It's in my home office, and I don't like it too bright because it's only a small office. High contrast. So if you have, if you had like visually impaired employees working there, maybe you need to have the high contrast switched on, absolutely go ahead and do that. You have things like silent mode and office hours, so you can define your office hours of when actually it will be working and when it's not going to be working. Power saving and screen capture is there as well. Now, a lot of these will depend on the actual Teams panel itself and the feature set that the OEMs have applied on there as well. So that would be your device settings. As we move down, of course, we then have network settings there as well. So if you need to, 99% of the time, you would leave this part, right? You'd have DHCP switched on, and then you'd let your network go ahead and assign the correct IP addresses, etc. However, in those instances where you need to define IP addresses, you need to define domain names, etc., you have the ability to do that directly from here as well. And then once you've done that, you would simply go ahead and hit the save button. So I'm just going to move my screen slightly. Go ahead, hit the save button, and that will then save that configuration file for you. That's ready. Now, at this point, you would go ahead and deploy all your rooms. So you deploy your rooms, you deploy your Teams panels across there. Once they're deployed and all powered on, you then come back into the Teams admin center. You come back to this page where it says configuration profiles. And then what you can do, actually, it's not the configuration profiles. You go back to the panels page across the top here. And what you'll see is here on the left-hand side, so all your devices that you have here, you've got these little tick buttons. You can then simply go ahead and toggle the ticks across here and select all of those new devices. I'm not going to do it on mine because I've got a configuration profile, but I'm going to just toggle my own home office here. You toggle all of those new devices across there, and now you'll see you've got assign configuration. You simply go ahead, hit the assign configuration button. It will then pop up saying, hey, search for the configuration profile. Okay, I don't know why Microsoft don't just list them all here. Unfortunately, they don't. You do need to sign to search for it. So if I remember correctly, I put mine down as test. So I'm just going to search test across there. You'll see test config pops up. And as soon as test config pops up, you just simply go ahead, hit that apply button. In fact, I'm not going to put the test config. I'm going to put my own config across here because that's the settings I want. Hit the apply button. That then queues it up for you. That's set. Now, if you do want to check to see what's happening, all you would do is you would select that Teams panel across here. You then go ahead and hit the History tab or the History button, and it will tell you exactly what the device is doing. So you can see here it says config update. It's queued. Usually takes about 10-15 minutes, if that, and then it will push out the config file to your Teams panel. Now you can do the same things for Android as well. So if you're looking at the Microsoft Teams Rooms devices on Android, same principle applies here. You'll see if I load up my Teams Rooms on Android devices, I can go ahead, hit the configuration profile there, add a brand new one, same thing, put a name, put a description down, and then you'll see you pretty much got most of the same settings here. There are additional settings because, of course, these are Teams Rooms devices. Things like occupancy notification, requiring passcodes to join meetings, allow room to use Microsoft Whiteboard. Themes will pop up here, and again, it's on the roadmap for Android. You will be able to use this particular page to upload custom wallpapers for your touchscreens, as in a touch console that sits in the middle of the table, the front of room displays, and of course the Teams panels as well. And then, of course, you have pretty much all the same types of settings that you saw earlier on. But this is a really, really easy way for you to be able to set up basic settings very, very quickly for devices that have been deployed all in one go. Hopefully, this is a nice, easy episode for you guys to digest. Configuration profiles. If you haven't done them, do check them out. It makes life so much more easier without you having to sit there on each individual device and setting things up across there. You'll notice across on the configuration profiles that it doesn't have anything to do with like peripherals, and that's purely because every room is going to be different. So then in that case, you would actually click on the room and you'd set the peripherals that way. But for the most common basic settings where you want the baseline, use config files, assign them to all your devices, and it's easy as that. Away you go. Of course, if you have any questions, any comments, please do list them down below. There's always somebody from Microsoft or myself that will be there to try and answer any questions that you have. But apart from that, I wish you a great weekend, a great week, and no doubt I shall see you in the next time. Ciao.